It is freezing cold in this booth.
Wait a second. It's 75 degrees outside and you're wearing a sweater.
It's always colder in the office when it's nice outside.
Yeah.
When it's nice outside, it's freezing in here.
It is chilly. I have my hoodie nearby, but I know I'm going to get riled up, so I'm not even going to. It's right there if I need it, my little security hoodie, but I'm not using it because I'm going to get pissed.
Hi, Julian Benzavalli.
Hello, Patrick Hines.
Oh, fam. Join us over on the Patreon. We're doing a drag bingo again this month.
Yeah.
We're doing all this fun stuff. We've got over 400 full ad-free bonus episodes for you to download and binge. What are some of the stuff that people could enjoy?
So, Natalia Grace.
Yes.
Well, first of all, ad-free versions of these on the regular feed,
Correct.
including all of our bonus episodes that we throw at you a couple times a year, several times a year, many times a year. and all of our series. So, all of Natalia Grace seasons 1 and 2.
Yep.
Lost Women of Highway 20.
The Cult of Mother God.
The Cult of Mother God. Love Has Won.
Oh, we're doing Twin Flames.
We're doing Quiet on Set.
I watched Quiet on Set on an airplane. I watched all 4 episodes. I cannot believe it.
I've watched all 5 episodes twice.
Oh my God.
It's insane. It's wild.
Also, fam, just join the Facebook group, the True Crime Obsessed podcast discussion group on Facebook. Come meet your TCO fam, make new friends, talk about the episodes. It's a really fun place to hang out on the internet, which isn't always so fun.
It's pretty rare.
I know.
To find a nice, safe place on the internet.
We did it. We did it.
Oh, boy.
Girl, what are we talking about today?
Oh, the girl in the picture.
Yeah.
We discovered that they changed their names. He took her around to strip clubs to make a living for him. There's a big question here. What happened to Sharon Marshall?
As an investigative journalist, you try to get down to the truth.
All this information, very simple to analyze, and we had a real problem.
This is more than just a crime story. Who is this girl?
She went by many names. We had a portrait of very different people.
This beautiful young woman was trapped in evil.
She was stuck and didn't know how to get out.
What happened? And who the hell is she?
It's late at night, Oklahoma City, April 1990. We are told 2 or 3 guys are in a truck driving down the road. They see some kind of debris on the side of the highway. They pull over and find a body.
Yeah, it's the body of Tanya Hughes.
Yes.
Her husband comes to the hospital. Her husband is a much older, weird guy, we're told. They have a little son named Michael. The doctors discover right away something is wrong with this picture. These injuries don't match up to a car accident. She has old injuries.
Yes.
So Tanya dies at the hospital. And Tanya's friends, she works at a strip club, and Tanya's friends from the strip club want to tell her family.
Yeah.
So they track down her family because it's not like she had her mom's phone number. They're just like, oh, Tanya Hughes. They old school Google, they look up in the phone book.
Yeah.
I guess, and find her. And the woman says...
And she says, what are you talking about? My daughter died 20 years ago. She was only 18 months old. They realized that who they just buried was not Tanya Hughes. So now they're asking, what happened and who the hell is she?
This Tanya Hughes that they've known, their friend, is obviously using the name of an actual baby that died 18 years ago, which means she's living with an alias.
Right. And for the sake of the story, everyone here calls her Tanya because that's how they knew her.
Exactly. So the woman that they just buried is not Tanya Hughes. So now they're asking, what happened and who the hell is she? Great setup, Sky Borgman, director of this documentary.
My goodness. So we're with Karen Parsley. She's a dancer at Passions.
Yes.
And she met Tanya in the fall of 1989. They were the youngest out of all the other dancers there.
Can I just say, these pictures of them, probably courtesy of Karen, the 80s hairstyles and clothes have this unique ability to make any 18-year-old look like a 50-year-old. Nobody looked amazing in the 80s.
But they did. It was weird. They had the pink lipstick. They had a lot of good...
It's the perms
instincts
of it all. I'm trying to imagine you with a perm with that gorgeous flaming purple hair, in a perm.
And the point was to frizz it.
I know.
To tease it. And there was a lot of work that went into it. But they did, for the time, they looked great.
They absolutely did.
But Karen says they weren't the, quote, biker girls. Karen and Tanya sort of gravitated towards each other. They had a lot in common.
She said, we were the type who went to school and graduated. Karen
says, they were studious. Karen was in college. Tanya read a lot. They were best best friends.
Yeah.
And Tanya was married, like we said, to this like much older guy. This is like the third time we've heard that.
Yes.
But Michael, their little boy, was Tanya's world.
And Tanya's husband's name is Clarence.
And Clarence's parents have a real good marriage. That's all I think of. Do you know from 8 Mile?
No, all I can think of is we're ready for clearance, Clarence.
But I know something about you.
What is that?
You went to Cranbrook. That's a private school. It's the last rap in 8 Mile.
Really?
And Clarence's parents have a real good marriage. Yeah, it's been in my head.
You only got
all
one
day.
shot. Do not use your chance to go because opportunity comes once in a lifetime.
Look at you!
I used to run to that song.
It's a great running song.
Which is a great way of dropping in that I used to run.
Yes. I went right by it. It's great because the end of 8 Mile, because they're like doing a rap battle. So the whole thing is that Eminem just turns it on this guy saying, I know everything you're going to say about me.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say it myself. And then he says, he's like Clarence. Like, and Clarence's parents have a real good marriage. Because this guy's acting like he's not, like his name isn't Clarence.
Yours reference is way better than mine. Mine's just from Airplane.
But I know something about you in my head for the rest of the day. You're welcome, everyone. Brittany Murphy's in that movie.
I
Come on.
know. Kim Basinger.
Yeah.
Plays the mom.
Yeah.
But anyway, Michael, her 2-year-old son is everything to her. He's her world. She loves him unconditionally and completely.
Yeah. Super. They just,
But we also learn.
Every time I seen them together, Michael would be right next to his mother. Wouldn't be next to Clarence at all. And I asked her, why don't we take Michael to the zoo? And she's like, no. Michael couldn't go anywhere with her alone.
We're getting right from the top. This guy, Clarence, is very controlling.
Yes.
He has to have his eyes on them at all times.
And Tanya was also terrified of him.
Yeah.
He had a life insurance policy on her. And, her friends from the club are like, she really wanted to run, but she had Michael.
Yeah.
So she just had to consider Michael. Like, was
Right.
she going to be able to take care of him? And that's what she was thinking.
And Karen is also saying, like, when you are a dancer like we are and you share a dressing room with people, like, you see each other naked. And this woman had bruises all over her body. And she would say that she tripped and fell, but, like, Karen says it was bad and it kept getting worse.
So April 25th, 1990, the husband calls Karen, Tanya's friend, and says, we were going on a road trip. Tanya was in an accident. It was a hit and run. And Karen's like, that's weird because Tanya and I talk about everything and she didn't say anything about a road trip.
Yeah.
So this is odd from the beginning.
So we meet Dr. Charles Ingalls. He's the neurosurgeon who was working on Tanya when she arrived at the hospital. And he says Tanya arrived at the ICU sometime after midnight. She had a medium to severe head injury. And he says they put her in the ICU and treated her the best they could, including medication to control brain swelling. Like, Tanya did not die. Tanya did not die immediately.
Right.
She was hit by a car and, like, basically had, like, a brutal path to death from there.
Well, it didn't look like she was hit by a car is the point.
Right.
Because the husband tells Karen, you're not allowed to visit Tanya. And Karen's like, fuck you and fuck that. She's my best friend. She's hurt. I'm going to visit her.
That's when the nurses came in, and then that's when they told me that they felt that this was foul play. The nurses told me it wasn't a hit and run. But what caught my attention was the scratch marks right here, like somebody's hand scratches. To me, it looked like she had been in a fight.
This was not a hit and run.
Which I
This
was saying, like, yay nurses, but maybe also tell the cops. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I think it's kind of like they are clocking the husband.
Yeah.
Her best friend is here.
Nurses know everything.
Like, what's the safest way
Yes.
to go about this? Like, what's happening here?
Yes.
So, because the nurses say, like, she looked like she was in a fight. She did not look like she got hit by a car.
Karen even says there were scratches across her chest that looked like she'd been in a fist fight.
Right. And so Tanya dies. She's 20 years old. And they show us an image of the headstone.
Yeah.
And it just says, it's like, I took a screenshot of it. It just says, Tanya, I'll always be with you, because they didn't know anything else about her.
What I thought was so amazing about that was that her husband, Clarence, clearly didn't give a shit about how she was buried. Because it was her friends who put together the money to make the headstone and have her buried. Like, doesn't this say something that the husband's like, no, her last name is my last name. Put the last name on that. He didn't
use
care.
some money from that insurance policy and give her a proper...
The husband just let the headstone just say the name Tanya.
Right.
That's wild.
Right.
How does that not raise a million questions?
Yeah, because he was probably like, whatever, she doesn't need one. And Karen and her friends were like, yes, she does.
Exactly.
Like, we're doing this. We're going to respect her the only way we can, because we don't know that much about her. That's the thing about jobs like that. Like, you are in the trenches and you know things about the other women there that nobody else knows, but like you don't know a last name.
Right.
You know, it's just like it's different. It's a different kind of closeness.
Yeah. They're also very worried about Michael, the son. They feel like he is not safe at all with Clarence, the husband.
So Michael, the son, is taken away from Clarence.
Yes.
And he's put in a foster home. And Merle and Ernest Bean are here, and they are the very proud foster parents of Michael.
I mean, they are so amazing. They say,
we got Michael on May the 1st of 1990. Michael's mom passed away the day before, and he had just celebrated his 2nd birthday. We got instructions from the caseworker that he's still on the bottle and he can only have Pepsi.
Basically being told that he was being fed Pepsi from a bottle. That was like what he ate.
Right.
You know, and Ernest, the foster dad, is saying, like, if you ever told him no, he became hysterical. He'd start like banging his head against the floor.
Yeah.
He says he was messed up in a way, but he was a good kid.
Yeah, they were happy to love him and help him, and he came from this horrible situation, and they were happy to be like some source of stability for him.
Yeah, and Merle, the foster mother, says the very first day she took him off the bottle and took him off the Pepsi, and within a week, like, he just started to settle in. Like, he's, you know, changing and becoming like, he's starting to trust them.
Right. So they had Michael for 4 years.
Yeah.
And they tell us the dad was trying to get him back the entire time.
Yes. And so we see the dad like testifying in court or whatever, but we learn that the dad had visiting rights. So Michael had to go visit him at least once a week. And Michael, at 2 years old, would crawl under the piano bench and say, that mean man.
Yeah.
He did not want to go.
Or from 2 to 6.
Yes.
Because he was with them for 4 years.
And I gotta tell you, as like a foster parent, like knowing that you have to deliver this kid that you love to their abuser and there's nothing you can do about it.
But guess what? Turns out this guy was not Michael's biological father. They did a paternity test, and now all of his rights are terminated by the court.
And like, he's no relation to this kid whatsoever.
And he was trying to hide that fact.
Yes.
He was very much like, this is my son, I blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
but it is not his birth father.
No, and now Clarence, the quote father, is stalking the foster parents. This is so crazy. Like, we had such a good experience in the foster care system in New York City because Clarence is driving by the house slowly in his pickup truck to be all threatening and creepy. The foster parents call the agency and are like, he's stalking us, and they say you're just being paranoid. The foster parents are being told, like, your concerns are not real, even though he's sitting in front of your house in his truck right now.
Right, like that's right, but I'm seeing it and I'm feeling it.
And he's right here and I'm scared.
Right, and we know that he's not, like, he has no rights here, and Michael is scared of him.
Yeah.
So I don't understand.
And guess what? Some really fucked up shit happens because nobody listens to these concerns. So September 12th, 1994, we learn that Clarence walks into his son's middle school.
Suspect casually walked in. He asked to see the principal. He said he was there to get his son. He actually pulled a gun partially out of his pocket and said, I want to get Michael, and you're going to help me do that.
He told me that he was ready to die, and if I didn't help him, I wasn't going to live.
I'm ready to die, and if you don't help me, you're going to die too. Pulls a gun on the principal.
Kidnaps Michael and the principal at gunpoint.
Yeah, then goes into the principal's own car with the principal. They drive into the woods where Clarence takes the principal out, handcuffs him to a tree, and then duct tapes his face to the tree and leaves him there.
And someone says, eventually, after a period of time, someone found this poor principal. I'm like, what period of time?
Duct tape to the tree by your face. Can you imagine anything more terrifying?
No. So Joe Fitzpatrick from the FBI is here, and he's
I
like,
love this guy.
You got to act immediately on kidnappings. I'm like, Joe, we know. Let's go. So they find out, they just sort of tell us, Clarence Hughes is actually Franklin Delano Floyd. I know where you thought I was going with that.
No, wait just a second.
Franklin
Delano Floyd.
He had a lot of aliases, however.
Yeah. Trenton David, Warren Marshall, Clarence Hughes.
Shut up, guy. Like, whatever. Oh, you have aliases?
I know. It's kind of a hard word to spell.
Aliases?
Uh-huh. No, just like A-L-I-A-S. I couldn't make my brain figure it out while I was trying to do the typing.
And then E-S.
It's an E-S, you say?
For aliases?
A-L-I-S-E-S.
It's Alias-I, actually.
Did you ever watch Alias?
I did it. You know what? You ask me that often, and I think it's a show. I don't know how I missed Alias, but I agree that it's a show I would love.
You would love it, and except it goes off the rails in the final season. Fam, back me up. If you loved Alias, do you not agree that it just goes off the rails in the final season?
Really?
Off off the rails.
That's a J.J. Abrams joint,
yes,
right? Felicity went off the rails too. Because,
did it?
Because it was supposed to end, and I think it got renewed, and then they made her like be able to time travel. It was crazy.
That's what happens in Alias.
Shut up,
it's
really?
Wild. Yeah. Then all of a sudden there's like body doubles. It's wild. Francie doesn't like coffee ice cream. Fam, if you know that Francie doesn't like coffee ice cream, get into the Facebook group and tell me.
Wait.
Yeah.
There's another time travel thing with J.J. Abrams?
Yes, it's wild.
Where can I watch Alias? I'll Google it.
You know how long ago I watched Alias? Long enough ago that I watched it on DVD from Netflix.
Oh my God, they used to send it to you in the mail.
Totally. And sometimes, like, you'd be at a cliffhanger and you'd get the next DVD and the DVD would be cracked. And you'd like,
okay, well, someone, where's the oversight, Netflix? Someone should have been looking to make sure that they weren't cracked or
I loved Alias
scratched.
so much.
All right.
I'm just saying.
I'm in. I mean, I agree. I can't believe I missed it. It's that kind of show. Like, I don't know what I was doing that I missed Alias, but I'll try to get into it.
We got to rectify that.
Okay.
Now we're learning the bad guy Clarence. We learned that he's got like a rap sheet a mile long, of course.
Oh, doesn't he? But this is the kind of stuff he was doing.
Yeah.
19, he kidnaps and assaults a 4-year-old.
He robbed a bank in 1963. He was released from the halfway house in 1972. Then in 1973, he attacked a female. He was arrested, posted bail, but then he failed to appear in court for trial. He had been on the run ever since that time and a fugitive for almost 2 decades.
So he's been on the run. He's been a fugitive since
17 years. Yeah.
So clearly, in my notes, I'm like, well, he killed Tanya, obviously.
Oh, right.
And
yeah.
he's probably going to kill Michael, and we have to find this guy.
Yeah, and that's like the thing. You know, Joe, the FBI Joe, says all this information was simple to analyze and told us we had a real problem.
Yeah, told us like everything and nothing because this guy's in the wind, has been for a long time, and has a very clear motive of what he wants to do.
Right, because now, like Michael the son, mortal danger. We got to find him instantly if we can.
Right. So now we learn Tanya Hughes, her name is Sharon Marshall.
Yes.
And her high school best friend sees the report about Michael and Tanya on the news.
Right. This friend's name is Jenny, and she's watching the news with her mom. And the mom is like, wait a second, I'm watching this report about this woman who's been murdered. They're calling her Tanya, but I'm telling you that's Sharon. That's your best friend Sharon from high school.
So her high school friends are here to say that like everyone loved her. She was like a typical 1980s high school vibe, and she was so smart. She was in ROTC. She was in the gifted program.
She met Jenny at student council camp. I was like, these are my nerd people.
She was in science club.
I know. Can you imagine like student council camp?
That I can't.
What do you do? That
seems like a lot.
Camp? Yeah, it's another one. We've covered this in the past where like the first thing they say to you is, we promise there's no sports here.
Yeah.
You know?
The indoor kids, like they say about American Summer. I was on student government in high school. I was a female social representative, and then I got kicked off it because I got caught plagiarizing a paper because I was undiagnosed ADHD. And I couldn't read the book. Like I didn't read the book, and I was doing it to try to like prove to everyone that I wasn't an idiot. And then I got caught, and then they kicked me off of student government.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I couldn't be on student government because I was so poor. I had to have an after-school job, and it always meant right after school.
Right.
And I was a bagger at the Stop and Shop, a job I actually loved. It's a skill I still use to this day.
It's a great skill.
You know, do you know how to properly pack a bag at the grocery store?
You know who does? My father.
And me.
Yeah.
You got to take the square items. You got to square off the bags. You got to make sure you put the eggs on the top. Put them in last.
Who's putting eggs on the bottom next to the ruffles? You're ruining breakfast and your snack now. We learned that Sharon's friends were like the outcasts. They were all like the gifted kids.
Yes.
And one of her friends is like, well, the gifted kids aren't really the popular kids. And I'm like, says who?
Yeah.
Let's turn that. Let's flip that one right
We
around.
really do have to do something about that. How do we make that kind of change in high school?
I think we just have to break down the hierarchy of high school, which is like impossible.
Totally.
Can we have the patriarchy to get to. I feel like we got to start with the patriarchy, and then
we got to make the cool kids be going to the
trickle down hierarchy economics, as it were. Start with the patriarchy. I'm not giving up on that because the patriarchy fucks up everything.
But she was also beautiful. Like her friend Sherry says, I remember the first day she came into class because like all the boys went, whoa.
Right.
And like the one secret lesbian.
And she was really nice to Ray, who is here. And Ray explains that he was bullied a lot, just like casual homophobia that he tells us about. And she was so nice to him. She was always writing notes. Hey, Ray, baby, I hope you're having a good day. I love you, Sharon.
I cannot remember. This would have been in the 80s. I cannot tell you as a gay person what it means to have a friend like that in high school. Somebody who sees you, loves you, celebrates celebrates you, is there for you. I had friends like that in high school. And there are a lot of gay people or just different people who don't have friends like that. And it really can fuck you up if you don't. And if you do, you're so lucky. And it just tells us the kind of person that Sharon was.
She was using her power for good.
And she knew it.
She was a pretty popular girl.
Yes. And she knew that he was a gay kid who was struggling and made him feel seen.
And he never forgot it.
And he says in the end of this thing, when we get to a resolution, he said her death to him was a semicolon. And I'm going to cry. And when he dies, maybe that's when there will be a period. Aww. Because, like, to him, they're still together.
Yeah.
You know? Like,
that stays
it's
with
incredible.
you. When you're going through a hard time and someone is nice to you, oh, shit. It really... When you are seen and heard in a rough time, it changes everything.
Dear fam, if I may, if you have the opportunity to be that person for somebody, I beg of you, see that person that needs to be seen.
For sure.
You know?
So Sharon wanted to go to Georgia Tech to be an aerospace engineer.
Like, oh my goodness gracious.
She got a full scholarship.
I know.
She's so excited.
Yeah.
And now, because of this, her father takes out a full-page ad in the yearbook to congratulate Sharon on, like, making, like, another step towards making her dreams come true. Like, she got into her dream school, she got the scholarship.
Yeah.
But it's weird because
there were parents who took out full-page ads, but they were all baby pictures. And, you know, why would a dad choose something sexy for his daughter? That doesn't make any sense. We just thought her dad was really strict and really weird.
The picture in the full-page ad in the yearbook is like a very sexy glamour shot of Sharon, and her friends are really creeped out by it because while he did that, he was also really, really strict and really weird.
Yeah.
And I thought, like, well, I don't know, like, maybe Sharon chose the picture. At first, I'm like, well, maybe she didn't want some embarrassing 4-year-old photo of her.
Right.
Maybe she just wanted to be like, I'm smart and sexy and I got my full scholarship. I don't know.
My high school was like this too, where like parents could buy a full page ad in the yearbook to like congratulate their kids. And it really is a thing where you're like, you show the baby pictures and you're like,
Right.
I mean, I don't know. The picture was like overly sexy.
Yeah.
But the big thing here is that like her home situation is really fucked and all of her friends are saying it. So Jenny is the one that's telling us all they knew was that Sharon's mother had been hit by a car on a bridge and died when Sharon was in 2nd grade, which I was like, that sounds familiar, right?
Didn't we just hear about something like that at the top of this thing?
Yeah. So Jenny is also telling us that Sharon was in charge of cooking dinner every night at her house. She wasn't allowed to talk on the phone. If she did talk on the phone, like as soon as her dad came home, she'd be like, I gotta go.
Or like she would call, she didn't want the phone ringing.
Yes.
So if she spoke on the phone, it would be because Sharon was secretly calling Jenny or Ray or somebody else. And she was very anxious about her dad walking on eggshells. She just either was in trouble or felt like she was about to get in trouble for some like stupid, not real thing. It's just a controlling nightmare.
We get a story too that like he met one of her friend's parents by dropping Sharon off there and then immediately asking the dad for
money, for a loan.
Can you imagine?
Like he's a guy, no one likes the guy. He's like, he's just the worst, right?
Yeah.
Jenny tells us that Sharon gets pregnant.
And she's like, well, I'm going to have it. You know, I'm going to put him up for adoption. But Daddy won't let me go to college now. You have to go. You got a scholarship. You're going to Tech. You're so smart. You want to be an aerospace engineer. You're going to do all these things. She said, somebody has to take care of Daddy.
Daddy won't let me go to college now, to one of her friends. And it's like, if only she knew her own power because she had a full scholarship.
Yeah.
She didn't need his permission.
Right.
You
and
know?
like, you know, he took her dream life away from her and she said to Jenny, well, someone has to take care of Daddy. So it's also this guilt of like, you know, she had to run the house. She had to make dinner. She had to be a grown up and a kid. Yeah. It's just a mess.
And so Jenny says one day she called and said that they were leaving for Arizona. She was going to go have the baby out there, give it up for adoption, and Daddy won't let her keep it.
Yeah, her father's forcing Sharon to give this baby up for adoption. So now Jenny, the high school friend, is now talking to the FBI trying to piece this together because of the thing on the news. Like, my friend, no, that's Sharon, that's not Tanya, but what's going on?
We're back to 1994 now. Remember, Sharon died in 1990.
So Tanya is Sharon. Sharon is Tanya.
Right.
And her husband is actually her father.
Yes.
Ugh.
I know.
Ugh.
And we learn this because Jenny, the high school friend, is shown pictures by Joe from the FBI. He's like, this is Tanya and this is her husband. And she's like, no, that's not her husband, that's her dad.
dad.
And Joe's like, no, that's her husband. And she's like, no, I grew up with her. Like, that's her father.
Right.
And this is when it hits Joe like, oh my God. this, like, he has married his daughter and
Right.
they're now living as husband and wife.
So Sharon Tanya changed her name a year before her death, and the new names were taken off tombstones in Alabama.
Which is how this opened with that phone call where they called the actual Tanya Hughes' mother. She's like, no, she died 18 years ago at 18 months old.
And that's why they chose that name.
Exactly. It matches Tanya's age.
It matches Tanya's age.
Yeah.
So they got married under these new names in New Orleans.
Yes.
And now we kind of shift to like what happened to Sharon between high school and now.
Right, because we know about now and we know about high school, but how did we get there?
Right, because she's Tanya now. So how did Tanya get to here? So it's 1988, and they stopped in Tampa for a little bit, and she worked as a dancer, this like go-to spot for adult entertainment.
Well, hang on a second. This place is called Mons Venus, and we meet Heather Lane, who was a dancer there, and kind of like the head woman in charge.
Yeah.
And Heather is I'm obsessed with Heather. Heather really took care of the women who worked with her.
Right. Because, Sharon worked there in 1988, and Heather says she looked like a little girl.
Yes.
She looked like a living baby doll. She dressed very innocent. She had a full lace cover-up, so she was never walking around completely naked like everyone else. She really did look like a little girl.
Sharon was the only one who wore like a lace cover-up.
Yeah. The rest of the women just like walk around naked because like who cares?
Their lingerie, but she always had like a little something over that. Sharon didn't talk about her past. She didn't talk about herself. And Heather ran these Millionaires Club parties. And Heather's like, let me tell you about the easy money I made at these parties.
Yes.
There were 3 songs, no lap dances, nobody touches you. You walk out of there with between $5,000 and $1,000 cash for no one touches you and you just dance for 3 songs. Easy money.
And Heather is in charge of like deciding which of the women get to go.
Yeah.
So we learned that Sharon, who's Tanya, they're the same person. Yeah. Her dad/husband had told her to go to Heather and say like, you got to get in on these parties.
Right. It's easy money. It's all cash. And he's not doing anything to earn any money. So Sharon, Heather's like, I loved Sharon, but she wasn't allowed. I had to ban her from these parties because Sharon was offering men sex services for $50. And when Heather's like, girl, like there are rules with this. I'm letting you into this thing. It's easy money. Why are you doing this? And Sharon says, well, my dad told me to do it, and he bought me the condoms.
And Heather
this
is just
piece of shit.
outraged by this. Because, like, not only is this like a horrendous thing to do to your daughter/wife.
Yeah, to force her to do something she doesn't want to do.
Yeah, and then, but also like ruining the party for Heather. Like Heather could lose the gig.
Right, and that's it too. It's just taking another thing away from her.
Exactly.
This was easy money.
Yeah.
She was comfortable with it. She consented to everything. 5-2. You're not good. You're not happy with that.
Exactly.
Then you get up your ass and get a fucking job.
And like he's never going to do that.
But it's about manipulating her. Yeah. It's about degrading her, dehumanizing her. That's the whole thing.
So Heather says that Sharon never told her that she was pregnant, but it becomes apparent. And then when Michael, the son, is born, she says like she was just an amazing mom. It's what everybody was saying in the top of the film. Like Michael was her world and she loved him so much.
Yeah. So we meet Michelle, who was Michael's babysitter, and Michelle lived like a block away.
They lived in the same trailer park, and Michelle just like loved Michael. She was like, he was my little buddy. She just loved him.
Yeah, she describes, the bad guy slept in a pullout in the living room.
Yeah.
Sharon had the back room. And the middle front room, she says, was Michael's. And he didn't have a crib, which she was like kind of weirded out by. But
it's funny because like she describes him as having a pack and play. It's just kind of a parent thing. Like I guess a crib is better, but like Daisy slept in pack and plays all the time.
What is a pack and play?
It's like a little playpen. But they're padded and they're meant for kids to like take naps in.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So Cheryl is Sharon's friend. Cheryl was like the coolest, the prettiest.
She was the Julia Pensavalle of this section of Tampa, Florida.
Like I couldn't. Cheryl was the coolest.
Yeah.
She drove a Corvette.
Michelle was obsessed with her. Michelle was like, you don't understand. She was beautiful. She had like this thick brown hair and like the big 80s hair and a Corvette. And she's like,
she literally would come through the trailer park with her Corvette. It was a beautiful car. And see me at the pool and just wave. And as a 15-year-old, somebody that pretty, it just made you feel good, that someone of her level, class, and style was saying hi.
she'd wave at us, and it was like, oh my God, this like gorgeous rad chick is waving at us, and like made us feel cool.
She had like the best clothes, and she wore the hell out of them, and she always like her nails were always done in this cool color, and like she made you feel cool, and she was
nice.
like not like gatekeeping, but she and like effortlessly, like she walked out of a White Snake video, you know,
exactly.
And so Michelle says like she looked wild, but she wasn't. She was just like a really cool, nice person that everyone was like, oh my God, Cheryl.
Totally. But then we get this really crazy story because Cheryl and Tanya are like best friends.
Yes.
And Michelle, the babysitter, is saying, one night I was over at Tanya's place and we were watching wrestling, and Warren, the dad, remember he's got a bunch of different aliases. The dad puts in a tape, like a VHS tape, to record it. Children, if you don't know what that is, just look it up. And he says, like, you know, there was already something on the tape, and as the tape comes to life, he sees a video of Tanya and Cheryl on the beach without their tops on.
Right.
So the dad is recording his own daughter and her friend topless on the beach.
And then Michelle, the babysitter, sees the video because it's like it just automatically played when he put it in the VCR, and he freaks out. He's like, oh, that was just for fun. Don't tell anyone. This is not weird at all. And you keep your fucking mouth shut. And I'm like, that's not a red flag or anything.
And so Heather, who's like the queen of the dance club where Cheryl and Tanya both work, when she finds out about this, she's really pissed at Cheryl. And Cheryl says, like, no, you don't understand. He said he was going to take my pictures and he was going to send them to Playboy because Cheryl's big dream was to like model for Playboy and she was going to be super famous. Heather earlier described Cheryl as naive, like she just kind of was. But then Cheryl says,
he was trying to have sex with me, and I didn't want to have sex with him. I was fighting him off. And a switch flipped, and he became very violent.
Now, this guy is aggressively and violently pursuing Cheryl. And Cheryl wants to stay away from him. Heather's like, look, this is what he wanted his daughter to do. Like, stay away from this guy. Like, please. So then one day, out of the clear blue sky, Sharon, Tanya, she and her family just disappear. She never shows up back to work. She doesn't say a word. She doesn't tell her best friends that she's going anywhere. She's just gone.
Yeah, and Heather is saying, I assumed it was because we found out about the video. The video was really creepy, and like Clarence, the dad's just got to get out of here.
Right. So we're back with Jenny from high school.
Yeah.
And Jenny tells this horrible story about a sleepover that happened at Sharon's house.
When they were kids.
And it was like, this guy was so creepy and so known to be creepy that her mother let Jenny go, but told Jenny, don't tell your father I let you go.
I gotta tell you, there's like this whole wave in like parenting circles now where sleepovers are not a thing.
Yeah.
I don't think we're gonna let Daisy do sleepovers. Mm-hmm. And like, parents, if you have feedback on this, I won't be offended if you put it in the Facebook group. Like, they're saying that like, as a parent letting a kid go for a sleepover, you know the parents, you trust them, but you have no control over who else is in the house. Like workers are in the house, or extended family is in the house, or the older brother's friends are over, and you just don't know. And like, my instinct is I just don't like it. And like, this story is a perfect example as to why.
Yeah.
Because in this example, like Jenny gets to go, like the mom's sort of against her like better judgment is like, I'll let you go this one time, don't tell your dad. And like the second she gets there, it all goes wrong. She's in Tanya's room. Tanya's just like showing her stuff, and she sees like all this sexy lingerie.
Right.
Like they're young teenagers.
Right.
Tanya says, like, my dad buys this stuff for me.
Right.
Like, that's the first really creepy thing that happens.
And then the father comes in with a gun and just starts yelling and scaring the hell out of Jenny.
Yeah.
Jenny's horrified, but Sharon, Tanya, is laughing. Oh, daddy's just being silly.
He's
and
just
Jenny's
like
what the, what is going on? And then, I'm sorry, everyone, trigger warning.
So he changed, and then he came back. And he still had the gun. And he ordered me to lay down on the floor on the sleeping bag and put a pillow on my head. And I did. And he raped her at gunpoint. I was in the room.
He rapes Sharon/Tanya at gunpoint while Jenny is in the room in her sleeping bag.
Yeah.
And Jenny, and like when it's over, Jenny is fucking horrified, still dealing with the fact that there was like a gun in her face.
Just to be clear, he just raped his own daughter in front of her best friend.
Right. At gunpoint.
At gunpoint.
While Jenny's in the room. And so Sharon, Tanya, sees how visibly upset Jenny is. And she's like, he's just like that. I'm okay. You're okay. We have to just let it go.
Yeah. I mean, it's clearly not the first time.
And it's a survival tactic.
Yes.
Like, don't upset him.
And like Jenny is saying to this day, she says, over the years, that's the hardest thing I've ever dealt with in my life.
Oh,
it's
God.
been with me. It's the most painful memory I've ever had. It changed who I was as a person. It changed how I viewed the world. It changed everything about me.
Because then also, now she has to lay in that room and it's the slowest night of her life.
Yeah.
Wait, when is too early for me to go home?
Right.
Like,
and she's too scared to tell anybody, she says.
Right.
She's held on to that secret her whole life.
But imagine laying there in the dark and thinking, like, is he coming back?
Right.
Like, he has a gun. When I just want to go home.
Yeah.
So we're back with the FBI, and they're like, look, there's no way that this guy is Sharon or Tanya's biological father.
Right.
Because Sharon Tanya was 20 years old in 1990. So she was born in like 1969, 1970. This guy was in prison from 1963 to 1972.
So he literally could not be her biological father.
And that means that he probably kidnapped Sharon Tanya because he has a history of this.
Right. So like this is where FBI Joe is like, who is this woman that we know as Tanya?
Or Sharon Marshall, Tanya Hughes. She's neither of those names.
Right.
Who is she? And remember, little Michael is still missing. Where is he?
Exactly.
So FBI Joe comes up with a plan. He's like, I'm going to look at what this guy did in the past, or like, you know, he'd use a name that maybe he'd use a name that he previously used. Maybe he'd go to a place that he'd been to before that he's a little familiar with.
Yes.
And he's like, because maybe he's just going to go back there. FBI Joe puts a stop on all of his aliases. ALIASS.
Thinking that he might try to renew a driver's license.
Sure enough, he renewed that driver's license under Warren Marshall in Louisville, Kentucky.
He renews Warren Marshall in Louisville, Kentucky.
Yes.
And off we go.
Can I tell you also, having done my show in Louisville, it is pronounced Louisville, and I really have learned, like, I was saying Louisville like everybody else for as long as I can remember. They schooled me. I will never say it wrong again. To the great people of Louisville, I just want to say thank you so much. I literally cannot say it incorrectly anymore.
Yes, and now I am that insufferable person where it's like Nevada or something else. When I hear like someone on the news say it, I'm like, it's Louisville.
Louisville.
And now everything you say, you have no credit at all.
I know. You got to say it like you have marbles in your mouth. They say it. Louisville.
Well, anyway, here we are. They dress an FBI guy up as a UPS guy.
This is my favorite. I said FBI Joe brings the shenanigans.
Right? The theater.
I know.
They pretend to deliver like, oh, sir, your brand new, sparkly, spanking new license is here. All we need is your signature. And that's when they arrest him. And it's like a go, go, go moment.
Go.
They arrest him and they take him into custody. And now this is all great. But again, we still do not know where Michael is, the little boy.
Just want to point out that Skye Borgman, the director, always picks the right scenes to do the reenactments of.
Yes.
Like, we get a reenactment of the scene. We get a reenactment of a trailer blowing up
few,
later.
But they're good.
But they're effective.
She knows.
They're really good with
For
their
sure.
Because there's a lot of slow motion moments.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Of course.
So good.
So they want to like prosecute this guy somehow, but we don't know where little Michael is.
Yes.
We don't know what's happened to him. And we don't know exactly what's going on with Sharon and Tanya.
Yeah.
But we know this guy's a piece of shit. So they want to like do something.
The next day, sat him down and I asked him if Michael was still alive. And he claimed that he was. He said he left him with a rich person, and there's no rich person have anything to do with Franklin Floyd.
There is no rich person having anything to do with Franklin Floyd.
No, Franklin Delano Floyd.
Right, that's his real name, Franklin Delano Floyd.
Right. So they end up charging him with the kidnapping of Michael Hughes, the little boy, carjacking, using a firearm during a carjacking, using a firearm during the kidnapping, and just that is 30 years minimum. Because remember, he kidnapped the principal with Michael.
Exactly.
So there are plenty of other crimes to get him, just so they can hold him for a while before we figure out the rest of this thing.
And listen, I'm never ever going to commit a crime, but like they love tacking on these firearms charges because it adds so many more years. Like the using a firearm during the carjacking added 5 years. The using a firearm during the kidnapping added 25 years.
They were like, this is it.
They're like, we might not be able to get him on the murder because they've decided at this point that Michael is dead and he definitely murdered him.
Yeah.
And they want to get him on murder, but like if they can't, they're looking at like maybe about 60 years when all of those charges are added up if they can get him on all of them.
Right.
Oh, and by the way, when they go to trial, this fucking idiot decides to defend himself.
He just wants to talk and argue.
And you know what? This is a guy that is really true. That is his downfall here in all of this, is that he needs to be talking and telling his own story the whole time.
And so we learned like he'd ramble, he'd go off on tangents. FBI Joe is like, it was just ego and hubris. He was narcissistic, sociopathic. Like he's just a nightmare.
Yeah.
And Jenny, our friend from high school.
Oh, this is so good.
She testifies. And she calls him out about Sharon.
She says, I remember staring right into his eyes and saying, I got you, fucker.
Yeah.
I was like, yes, Jenny.
And she's like, that was your child, like that was your daughter, that, or like whoever it was.
Well,
but like,
there's this great moment because he's questioning her because he's representing himself.
Can you imagine?
I know. He gets up in her face and says, can you confirm that you drew your opinion about me based on what the FBI told you, right? And she goes, no.
And she said, no. I drew my opinion about you when I saw the type of lingerie you were buying your daughter and how you were making her dress. That's when I drew my opinion about you.
And I looked right in the face and I said, you were her daddy. She called you daddy. You were her father.
That's when I drew my opinion about you, sir.
Yeah, and the rape at gunpoint.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you fucking asshole.
You were her father, you were her daddy.
Like, oh my God.
She says, at that point, his attorney just threw his papers in the air because there was nothing. Can't you just see, like, talking about theater, Sky, where was that reenactment?
Yeah. There's a great, I'm sorry, I'm going to mention it again, that scene in The Simpsons I love where they ask Mark, we went fishing. Yeah. There's one that the lawyer goes, yo witness, and he like throws and the yo witness is so funny to me, but that's the thing. It's like, yo witness, like, fuck it, like, I'm done. I'm done with this guy. So guess what? He's found guilty on all counts. He's sent to 52 years in prison, no parole, so he's at least in one place. If we need more information, we know where to find him.
It's not murder. They didn't want to take a chance because without a body, they knew it'd be really tough, but they got him for 52 fucking years.
No parole,
no,
like, fine.
FBI Joe, I want to just say, FBI Joe gives a shit.
And he also doesn't give up because there's so much more here. He wants to find Michael. He wants to figure out who Tanya Sharon was. Like, he really, like, this isn't over for him at all.
No. Can I just say one more thing? When we see the bad guy coming out of court after being sentenced, a reporter shouts a question at him, and his response is, fuck you and Oklahoma.
All right.
Fuck you and Oklahoma.
Okay, jeez.
Oh, my God.
So they finally find the principal's truck.
Yeah, I was like, were we still looking for that?
This guy stolen, I guess so. Because he stole in the kidnapping or whatever. But taped under the truck, they find these photos and, quote, they are almost all obscene.
Including some photographs of Sharon when she was small. It's child sexual abuse material.
Yeah.
Some of them including Sharon.
Over 100 photos.
Yeah.
But then there's another girl.
Yes.
And there's this girl, they describe it as various stages of being disrobed and beaten. Nobody knows who she is.
And FBI Joe says, looking at how badly beaten this woman is, there's no way that he didn't beat this woman to death. Like, this woman is definitely dead, and this is him photographing himself beating her to death.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
So FBI Joe notices tan lines on this mystery woman.
Looking at her, she had real tan lines. And I thought, well, they, of course, spent time in Florida, Georgia, and Kentucky. So I sent the photographs down to those offices and asked them to check their unsolved cases. Now, this is what you call a shot in the dark.
This is what you call a real shot in the dark.
Yeah.
Joe, you're 2 for 2.
He's good because he sends them to the states where he knows that the bad guy had been. So it's like Florida, Arizona, Missouri, and Georgia. I think I just did that from memory.
Oh, my God. You did. You weren't looking at your notes. I saw it. You're not allowed to ask me what the hell this documentary is called now, if you could do that at the end.
Okay, that's fair.
Not allowed.
Oh, God, now it's out of my head. Now the pressure's really on.
Oh, God.
But yeah, Florida, March 29th, 1995, we learned that a highway crew found a skull on the side of the road. They spent 4 days digging the area. They recovered 90% of the skeleton, along with a breast implant, clothing, and some jewelry. So, like, this was an unidentified body. It had 2 bullets in the back of its skull. And it's classified as a homicide almost immediately. These 2 stories come together.
Yes. This is the second real shot in the dark that Joe does. And once again, it works, right?
Yeah.
So there was an unsolved murder in Florida. They found skeletal remains, but they couldn't ID the body. Then a year later, FBI Joe comes along and he's like, I have these disgusting photos. I need to get to the bottom of this Jane Doe.
Yeah.
Can you help me out? And they put it all together, and it's Cheryl Ann Comesso, cool, gorgeous, super nice Cheryl from the strip club that the bad guy was obsessed with.
Yeah, because the woman in the picture that we know is Cheryl had a shirt, and that same shirt was found in this grave with this skull on the side of the road in Florida. So just using that
and the breast implant and the
dental records are able to identify her as like cool ass Cheryl with the Camaro.
Right.
She'd been missing for 6 years.
Right. And this guy, like the bad guy, was we learned about how obsessed with her he actually was. He was always calling the club. He was always like trying to get personal information about her. She'd come in with marks and bruises.
Yeah.
And people at the club were trying to create a separation between between them. And like, that is a very real thing in clubs like this. We need to keep these performers safe.
All Heather. Heather is managing this by herself. She's the one taking the calls from the bad guy being like, Cheryl's not here, click.
Yeah.
She describes one night, Heather is walking out to the parking lot. She sees Cheryl engaged in a screaming fight with Sharon's dad.
Yeah.
And she like separates her from him, walks her.
And the dad is like, Cheryl, I'm going to kill you.
Literally.
That Heather overhears as she's trying to help Cheryl.
I walked away holding her, walked her to her car. I thought she would go home to her dad, and that was the last time I saw Cheryl.
And after that night, she never saw Cheryl again.
And it's like, where's the bouncer? We have to protect these performers. Where is someone to be like, hey, buddy, out of here. You shouldn't even be allowed in the parking lot.
Exactly.
Why is he allowed to start harassing and screaming at these performers? I don't understand it.
Now we get this crazy story from Michelle, the babysitter. She says one night Sharon and the bad guy decide they have to go out of town. They ask me if I can collect the mail and keep an eye on the trailer. She's like, sure. A few nights later, Michelle is on the porch of her own trailer. She looks like, follows this truck that's driving down the street, stops in front of Cheryl and the bad guy's trailer, goes in, comes out. 2 seconds later, the whole thing explodes.
Right.
We get a reenactment. Thank you, Sky.
Thanks.
Sky, how did you get them to blow up that trailer?
I don't know.
It was wild.
CGI or what?
I don't know.
So remember how Sharon, Tanya disappeared and didn't go to work?
Yeah.
And we were like, oh, it's got to be because of what the babysitter saw on that VHS tape of Cheryl. So also, in addition to that, when Awesome Heather is intervening, saying to the bad guy, get the hell away from Cheryl, you're threatening her.
Yeah.
The guy starts revving his engine at Heather, like as if he's going to run her over.
Yes. Yeah.
So then Heather's like, fuck you. Heather walks cool Cheryl to her car, and that's the last time Cheryl is seen by anybody. And then Sharon and this guy all disappear. So it's all of those things are leading to their disappearance.
And now that we know that Cheryl died probably that night, FBI Joe says,
we finally knew why Floyd left Florida in such a hurry. He was fleeing because he had killed Cheryl Comissal. Floyd knew the law enforcement would be looking for a man, his daughter, and her child. They would not be looking for a man and his wife and their child.
So that's why they get married.
Because nobody's going to be looking for a man, his wife, and their child.
The whole story, which is true, he kidnapped his daughter.
Yeah.
So if he can make her look older, and if they're legally married, that's what he's doing here.
Yeah.
In 2002, the bad guy is charged with Cheryl's murder. He's found guilty and he's sentenced to death.
Yes.
And they're like, that's great, but where is Michael's body? Because we need to get to the bottom of what he did to this poor kid.
Right. And this is where we meet Matt Birkbeck, who's an author. And he said that year, a friend sent him an image from the Doe Network website. He said it was a picture of a little girl sitting in the lap of a man who was supposed to be her father. We've seen this picture throughout. It's the picture on the cover of it's like the cover art for the documentary. It's the girl in the picture.
Right.
And it's, obviously we know it's Tanya, but he's saying
the caption was underneath that she had been kidnapped, raised as his daughter, and married and killed. And I said, oh my God, but the more you looked at the picture and the more you looked at her, you could see something was terribly wrong.
And you can tell in the photo something is wrong.
Yes.
Like the little girl is disassociating. She's not happy. She's not even here.
Yeah. But the point is,
it's a striking photo.
We don't know. We know that she once lived as Sharon. She once lived as Tanya, but we don't know who she actually is. And that's the work of the Doe Network, is to try to identify these people.
Right. And Matt, the author, is like, who probably knows? Franklin Delano Floyd in prison. This is the bad guy.
So the only person who knows this girl's real identity is her father/husband. He definitely knows.
So Matt, the author, goes to visit him in prison, and this guy just doesn't stop talking.
Well, and again, that's going to be his downfall.
So here's what we learn. And again, we learn from this horrible person, unreliable narrator. So who knows? But we learn he was born in 1943. He was sent to the Georgia Children's Baptist Home. It was awful. He was abused in every sense.
Yes.
And in addition to that, he denies absolutely every crime he's been accused of.
Yeah, he denies having anything to do with the disappearance of Tanya, the murder of Cheryl, and the disappearance of Michael.
Or any other thing that he even went to prison for in the 60s.
Been convicted, all of those things. But I do want to point out that Matt, the author, says in telling us his backstory, he's like, this is no excuse, but I could see how this monster was created. He was beaten by the people who ran the school that he went to.
Yeah.
He was raped by the boys who were there. You create monsters that way.
And Matt, the author, says, I didn't learn anything other than that this person is clearly psychotic.
Yes.
So Matt writes the book anyway, even though he didn't find out who Sharon really was.
And that was really the point. He really wanted to write this book and figure out who this girl was. Yeah. And it doesn't happen, and the book gets published and it comes out. But the good news about a book coming out with an unanswered question is that the internet's going to light up with all the internet sleuths, and they're going to try to get to the bottom of it.
Right. So people are now trying to find out who Sharon is, and he's getting emails from all over the world.
Yeah.
And he's like, some people, I have to be honest, were really mad at me and really frustrated with the book. Like, why would I write this book with no answer? But anyway.
But I'm telling you, write the book. If you're the author out there, you don't need the answer. We will help you find the answer. Write the book and get people interested in the case. You know what I mean? Because that's eventually what happens here.
Right. So it's 2005. Are you ready for this?
Oh my God, this is wild. Pull over! Pull over!
But then in 2005, almost a year after the book came out, we got a break. I got an anonymous email, and it said, would the DNA of Sharon's daughter help you?
Would the DNA of Sharon's daughter help you? What?
What?
Wait a second.
Because we don't know about another, like, how would this be possible?
Sharon's daughter,
yeah.
Her name is Megan.
Yes.
Megan, Sharon's birth daughter, is here.
She's amazing.
She was a junior in high school, and her aunt discovered Matt's book.
Yes.
Now, Megan's mother is named Mary.
Yes.
Mary's also here. And she says that the bad guy and Tanya, Sharon, walked into a lawyer's office and said, we can't afford another child.
So they already had Michael.
Right. We can't afford another child. Do you know anyone who would want to adopt?
Yes. And this is when they call Mary. And Mary comes in and she's like, she meets the bad guy and Tanya gets a real bad fucking vibe from the bad guy. So much so that she's almost like, I don't know that I want to do this. But she says that like God kept telling her this is it. And 6 weeks later, Megan is born. And, you know, Mary, the mom says, I was alone in a room with Tanya.
Yeah.
And I asked her, like, do you want to meet your child? And she said, no, I can't. And she says, and a really interesting thing about this is like, knowing now that we know how much danger and trouble Tanya was in with this man, she's like, it was just me and her in this room. And she didn't ask me for help because she was that scared.
Yeah.
And she's that scared for Michael, you know, like,
Of course. And Michael was her world. And so just to make sure he's safe was her most important. Okay, so we know that story, right?
Yes.
2011, our good friends at NCMEC enter the picture.
Yes.
Ashley Rodriguez. She has this case file of this whole story.
She says it's a tiny case file. She's like, it was like this little case file about this girl named Sharon Marshall, who's, Tanya Megan's
Hughes.
mom. Yeah, Michael's mother. She says she didn't have a lot to go on, but FBI Joe.
FBI Joe's knocking her door down. I'll help you. I have a whole garage worth of files. My wife's begging me to organize it and get it cleaned out. Please, goddamn it, Ashley, let me help you.
I just said, because Joe's retired by this point. This is the case that got away.
He says this was unfinished business.
I said he's coming out of retirement, baby.
Let's go, baby. Let's go. So they go back to the bad guy who's on death row. Right.
The bad guy who holds the answer is still alive on death row.
Now, let me just paint this picture because this time they don't send in Matt the lawyer. It's not FBI Joe. It's not even Ashley from NCMEC.
Yeah.
This time they send in Scott Lobb and Nate Furr. And the way it's filmed, you can tell these are like the bad boys of talking to murderers. It's a slow down, like it's like, okay, like Scott and Nate, like dazzle me boys.
Yes.
Like, what do you got?
Dazzler boys.
Dazzle me
Dazzler.
boys. Because you're kind of presented as like, if anyone's gonna get this done, it's Scott and Nate.
And
so
guess
let's go.
what? They're fucking right.
So they walk in, and this piece of shit again is like, more people for me to talk to.
I know.
He's ranting for 45 minutes. He thinks these two are his lawyers.
They do.
They finally get a word in. He finally takes a breath, and they're like, I'm sorry, we're from the FBI.
Yeah,
Who do you think you're talking to right now? And then he's like, whatever, and just keeps ranting. He doesn't care who the audience is.
I know.
But then he starts crying, and they're like, perfect.
They
we know
see
how to
an
handle
opening,
this.
and one of them is like, because they tell him that they're there because they're reopening the case of Michael.
Right.
Like, where's 2-year-old Michael?
They're not lawyers to help him.
Right.
They want to get to the bottom.
They want to get to the bottom. And one of them just says, how'd you kill him, Floyd? And Floyd says, don't do that.
Slams on the table.
And then he pounds on the table.
And I finally hit my fist down on the table. How'd you kill him? Floyd, how'd you kill him? Waterworks turn off. I shot him twice in the back of the head to make it real quick.
I shot him twice in the back of the head and make it look real quick.
And then they're like, okay. And
so like he's just
bury him?
admitted to killing Michael.
Right. And they don't skip a beat. They're like, where?
Yes.
Now that the floodgates are open, I don't know if he's in a trance or what. Get him to answer again. He says he buried Michael on the Oklahoma-Texas border.
Yeah.
The FBI goes down there and they say, we gave it all we could.
They dug for 2 days. I was like, is that All you could? That's the totality of what you could?
They said they did everything they could. They could not, and they did not find Michael.
Yeah.
But the killer keeps talking. He's ranting and raving. And now he starts talking about his time in North Carolina.
Yeah.
And he was so handsome back then. And he was in his bus driver uniform. And he was the best and hottest bus driver in the world. And Scott and Nate are like, what? We got breaking for lunch soon. What is this guy talking about?
Well, he describes meeting a girl named Sandy, and she had just lost her 3 kids to the state. And Scott, one of the FBI guys,
this is genius.
Genius idea to say, what was your name at the time?
And now I just want to slow down on why that's smart.
Yeah.
Because it's one of those questions that you don't think, they kind of are doing that rapid fire thing.
Yeah.
Where it's like, answer, what do you want for dinner tonight? Don't think, just answer it.
Macaroni and cheese.
Done.
Whoa.
So, right?
That happened
it
really
works,
fast.
right? So that's kind of, they're in a macaroni and cheese trance moment.
Who isn't?
I don't know.
Okay.
Someone who's lactose intolerant, the poor thing. Take your medicine and eat the macaroni and cheese.
Just eat it.
It's worth
eat
it. So he says, this guy's on a roll. He doesn't even know that we're, this could be incriminating in any way.
Yeah.
So I met a girl named Sandy. She just lost her 3 kids to the state. Scott's like, fascinating. What was your name at the time? And he goes, Brandon Cleo Williams. Done. We got him.
Yeah.
This is brand new information.
Exactly. This is the brand new information, the only new information they've ever had in the case.
And Sandy is new information.
Yes.
This new Brandon Cleo Williams is new. And they're like, great. So the bad guy says, he tells them the following.
The person that he met, how they got married, he gave us the date. He was able to give us the daughters' names and even where the daughters were born.
So I said, well, who's the oldest? He goes, well, that's the one you're here asking about.
And the bad guy's like, well, the one you're here asking about.
Yeah.
And then it's like, I don't know if those 2 bad boys can have poker faces.
I know.
But that's a moment where you're like, oh, really?
I just
the one we're here asking about.
I couldn't stop thinking about that scene in A Few Good Men where he just taunts Jack Nicholson on the stand to giving
You
up.
ordered the code red. You ordered the code red.
Exactly.
You're goddamn right I did.
You're goddamn right I did. But I'm like, you're like,
Santiago,
that would never.
Oh God, that movie is excellent.
It's very good. But you think that would never happen. You can't rattle somebody into giving you all the answers. It happens right here.
And now it's also a little bit sort of like positive reinforcement because he's giving them answers. And they're like, okay, cool. They're giving it. All he wants is attention.
Exactly.
All he wants is someone to listen to this bullshit. Not bullshit at all, but horrible things. And it's just, they just got him in this groove. And here we go.
And in case you're not following, they just got him to say Sharon's mother, how he got her, who her siblings are, where she was born, and
what her name is.
And what her name is. So Sharon Tanya's real name is Suzanne Savakis.
Yeah.
They got all the
information.
Unbelievable.
And guess what? Both of her parents are still alive, Sandra and Clifford.
Sandy.
Sandy,
yes.
Sandra.
And we're about to meet them.
And they're both here.
Yeah.
So we learn about Suzanne, Tanya, Sharon, Suzanne.
Yeah.
She was smart, silly, quick-witted. Everything her high school friends said, everything we've heard about her is true.
Yep.
She was amazing, right?
Sandy and Cliff, who are Suzanne's parents, they met when they were in high school. They got married right out of high school. And she says when she got pregnant, she was super excited. She was super happy. She couldn't wait to have the baby. Cliff goes off to Vietnam.
And he's in Vietnam when Suzanne was born.
And he doesn't meet her until she's 6 months old. But when he comes back from the war, as happens so often, his mental health is in the garbage.
Especially with Vietnam. He says, I was different when I got back.
Yes.
And also, no one was treating...
Exactly. Nobody even identified it as a real, true thing.
Right. And because that war was so fraught and no one wanted to be there anyway, they blamed the vets when they came home from Vietnam. And it was just a fucking mess.
So Cliff says,
when I went to Vietnam, you leave the rest of the world behind and that's your whole world. I was different when I got back. And she was seeing another guy. And that's when Sandy told me she wanted a divorce.
Sandy was seeing another guy and got pregnant with his twins. Now, Suzanne, who's the center of this whole movie, is the daughter, Suzanne, who's also Tanya and Sharon.
Yes.
She is the daughter of Cliff and Sandy. Sandy started seeing somebody else and got pregnant with the twins. And that's when she told Cliff she wanted a divorce.
Right.
Now, that marriage, the one that she left Cliff for, falls apart almost immediately.
Right.
She has twins with him. Their names are Amy and Allison, but that marriage falls apart very fast.
Now, Sandy's trailer gets destroyed by a tornado.
She's living alone, raising these 3 kids by herself.
And she takes the 3 kids to social services and she goes, I can't take care of them.
Yeah.
Now, Cliff was 23 years old. He says, quote, he was messed up from Vietnam. That's his words. And social services kind of offers them either you can keep all 3
to Cliff. 2 of them are not yours.
Or you can give up all 3 together.
But now he decides to give them up because he's living with his parents. He's not doing well. He doesn't have any money. He doesn't have a job. Before you judge him for this happens in the foster care system all the time, where there's a set of 3 kids, and of course they want to keep the kids together. So they want to put all kids in the same home.
A family who wants all 3.
Yes.
And that's what's being pitched to Cliff right now.
When he's 23 years old. You can see Cliff today regretting every second of this because we all know what's about to happen.
Right. And he says, I wouldn't be a good parent. I'm 23. I just came home from Vietnam. Like, if there is a family, what he's being told is there's a family who wants all 3 of them.
Yes.
He thinks, as a 23-year-old Vietnam veteran, that they have the best shot at life without Cliff.
Right.
That's what he is thinking right now.
Yeah. And, the truth of the matter is Sandy gets the kids back pretty fast. I need Cliff to let himself off the hook here because he did the right thing. There's no way that he could have, who knows what is going to happen in any circumstance. Right. At the very least, I'm not blaming Cliff here. And Sandy is about to meet the bad guy, very soon and get her kids back anyway.
Yeah.
So
here's a story that makes no sense to me at all.
Yeah.
And Sandy herself is telling us the story.
Yeah.
Because of everything that's going on, she is crying at church.
Yeah, she goes to a church.
And in walks the killer,
yes.
the bad guy, and he starts comforting her. What's wrong? God sent me here to help you. He says to her, he just met this woman. This is all according to Sandy. Watch the documentary. She says it. Because I was like, what is, none of this makes sense to me.
Yeah.
This story cannot be true.
Yeah.
Because he says to her,
he said, we'll go get your children. We'll get married, and I'll take care of you and the children, and everything will be all right.
I know we met 45 seconds ago, but this seems like an amazing plan. I know you don't know me from a hole in the wall, but I promise you I'm a stand-up guy.
I know. No, that's true.
That's even how Sandy says it.
Yeah.
He came down from the heavens, this bright, shining angel to save her. And Sandy's like, for sure. Sandy marries him. And then suddenly, right away, things get very scary.
She says he carried a knife around all the time. He'd hold the knife and say, you think you're going to leave me? That's not happening.
This story doesn't, him being threatening to her, for sure.
Yeah.
But the way they met doesn't make any sense to me. Her just saying, yeah, I'll marry you now. I know people do things to save their kids. I understand that.
Yeah.
There's something, she was in church. It's a little too, I don't like it.
Well, because what happens next is suddenly she's very scared and unhappy. She says, one day we needed diapers. I had no money. I wrote a bad check for the diapers. I get 30 days in jail. And it's during those 30 days that he takes the kids and absconds.
Now, she's told that there's nothing that can be done because she's legally married. And I'm like, we got to meet in the middle on this.
But I don't think...
you can't even investigate?
I don't think that's true because the kids aren't legal. They're not his children.
Right. But
you know what I mean?
What Sandy is saying now, I couldn't do anything because I legally married him.
No, I'm calling bullshit on this part of the story because it'd be one thing if he had legally adopted the kids and he's their legal guardian or whatever, but he's not. To them, legally, he's a stranger.
Right. But he legally married their mother.
Right. But I don't know.
That's what Sandy is saying.
Sandy is saying that the cops are saying this is a civil matter. You have to handle it yourselves. We have no jurisdiction here. I don't think that's true.
So what the bad guy does is he drops the twins off at, quote, the orphanage.
Yeah.
And he takes Suzanne, Sharon, Tanya with him.
Yeah.
Now we get from some of Susie's friends,
Susie is Sharon and Tanya.
Heather, the dancer friend, is back.
Yeah.
And Heather drops a major bomb on us.
I mean, it's out of nowhere.
She's like, I'm going to be honest with you, fucking come for me, internet, but I don't think my friend's mother did enough.
I was taken in 1976, and for almost 5 years, my mom contacted everyone, her senator, the mayor. She went on TV. She did everything she could.
I was missing for 5 years, and my mother did everything she could. She called her senator. She was on the news. And I'm like, Heather, wait, whoa. Heather, my God.
I know. Are you okay? What happened?
But Heather says, don't call bullshit with me because I lived it.
Yeah.
I was missing for 5 years, and my mother did everything she could, and look at me now. I was, you know what I'm saying?
I do, because the next person we talk to is Mary, who's Megan's mom. Now, I know there's a lot of names in Family Tree here. Megan is the daughter of our victim here.
Yes.
She's the daughter of who we know as Sharon and Tanya. Her mother, Mary, says that I called Tanya, Sharon's mother, and said hey, I have your granddaughter is now my daughter. Like, would you like to meet her? And Sandy had no interest. She wanted nothing to. Now, again, we don't know Sandy's pain. We don't know her motivation. There's whatever.
I can understand if you just want to say, I think she's better off not knowing me.
Yes.
I would get too. I also don't really believe much of what Sandy has said. And I know that might be controversial, but it feels very off to me.
Yes. I think a lot of people agree.
And I have some updates, so we'll get to that in a minute.
Oh, great. So, like, as we're getting to the end, the silver lining in this whole thing is we now know who Tanya/Suzanne is. Remember when she was buried, her friends did the headstone that just said Tanya because they didn't know her name?
Yeah.
There's this whole great thing in the end where Matt, the writer, calls Megan, who's the victim's daughter, and says, I want to get her, like, a proper headstone.
Right. With her real identity.
Yes, and it kind of ends with them unveiling this beautiful headstone on July 3rd, 2017, and Megan, her daughter, is there. Cliff, her biological dad, is there. Sandy does not come, but a lot of her dancer friends, people who knew her through her whole life, are there at this unveiling. And Joe from the FBI, whose like life goal it was to like figure out who this woman really was and give her her name
little Michael
back.
Too.
And little Michael we never find.
Yeah.
We don't we think we know where the killer says he is, but we don't really know where
he is. But I'm just saying, FBI Joe, like this whole story meant so much to him.
It was important to all of us. It was. This is who she really was. This is really her dad. This is her daughter, Here's where she is, here's where she lies, and here's what her true name is.
Suzanne finally got the memorial service that she always deserved. And all of these people from all of these different points in her life all came together for the same reason, to celebrate who she was.
Yeah.
And to honor her and respect her for all of the horrible things that she went through and come together.
Yeah.
In that way.
And really, and give her name back. I think that's kind of the point of the headstone in the end. It's like,
of
give her
course.
name back.
Put it down on paper, write it in stone. You know how people say, like, oh, it's not written in stone? This is.
Well, and what's amazing about it is that Cliff, her biological dad, says the thing is, like, Suzanne probably never really knew her own name. You know what I mean? When she was Tanya,
oh, God.
She probably didn't even know her own name. But he says, but to see these people that knew her coming back together and sort of giving her the gift of her own identity is a really beautiful way to end this documentary. Good job, Sky.
Well, I had some questions.
Okay.
Sandy's story didn't make any sense to me. She didn't look for her kid. She met him in church. She married him in 2 seconds. So I Googled. From my research, the mother actually had 7 kids.
The Sandy?
Yeah.
Okay.
And according to the book, one of the twins, Allison, according to the book, Allison said that her mother, Sandy, was actively trying to sell the children because she was so down and out with money. She, according to Allison, didn't meet the killer in church. She met him at a truck stop, and he took 4 kids, not 3. So it was the twins and Suzanne and a half brother.
Oh my God.
And his name is Jonathan. He is like on TikTok. He is telling his story. He has a lot of information. He is biracial, which I think is important to the story.
Oh, wow.
The fact that he's sort of forgotten in this telling is interesting. So like, she had 7, she never filed any reports at all. Like there's just a lot here about like who is Megan's father, who is Michael's father,
right?
What happened? What really happened?
We know the killer is not 2-year-old Michael's father.
No, so who is?
Yeah,
right. And who is Megan's father? And just what was happening to Suzanne in her life? That there are so many unanswered questions.
Yeah,
that her mother either made those questions happen or she doesn't want the answer in any way.
Yeah,
and apparently Cheryl, cool, awesome Cheryl.
Yeah,
there was maybe some thoughts, and again, I don't want to tell tales out of school, but there's some thoughts and maybe some evidence leading to the fact that Suzanne and Cheryl kind of wanted to be in a relationship together. And the bad guy like couldn't have that because he needed to control them and he needed to be with them. And that's why Cheryl was not interested, or that's why he was so angry with Cheryl. So there's like a lot.
Is this all in the book?
A lot of it's in the book, yes. And Jonathan himself is on. There's a creator called Madiswan. She has a lot of videos about this on YouTube and TikTok.
All right.
But there's like a lot. Like there's a lot. There's a lot.
Well, look, it's a complicated story. I don't know. In addition to everything else, I was really here for the reenactments. I liked watching that trailer blow up.
You say you're gay, but you like a car explosion.
You're right. That's true.
You'd watch Die Hard, I think.
Well, I love Die Hard.
There you go.
Maybe I'm not gay.
No, you're gay. You're
okay,
gay.
Thank
Gay
you.
people like Die
Please
Hard.
don't take it away from me.
No, I won't.
Oh, girl, we did the girl in the picture. I did it.
I called you on it.
did
See,
it.
when you put your mind to it, you
can do anything.
It.
Hey, I want to remind fam, follow us on social media. Our social media manager, Aaron Downs, who you should also follow on all the places because he's amazing himself. He makes these amazing videos of our really funny moments in the booth. It's at True Crime Obsessed Podcast on TikTok and Instagram.
Yep.
I'm at Patrick Hines _. You're at Jillian with a G.
Yeah, all spelled out like that. Also, Aaron's wife, Megan, is amazing.
Oh my God.
Because she's a social media influencer herself.
Megan Miles NYC.
Yes.
And what are we doing next time?
Can I tell you a secret?
Oh, I don't know anything about this one.
I thought you were going to be like, what?
What
and
is
then I
it?
would be like, it's called Can I Tell You a Secret? It's on Netflix. It's a 3-parter. We're going to do it on the regular feed for you. It is wild. It's another internet stalking, bullying, harassment thing.
Oh, wild.
But the women who went through it are here to tell their story. So
okay.
It's fascinating.
All right, fam, stay tuned for the trailer for that and our funny and hilarious outtakes, I hope.
Yeah, I hope. Who knows?
Who
Here's
knows?
hoping. You say that every time. I'm like, we shouldn't promise them something that we can't deliver.
You know what? Our potentially funny and hilarious outtakes.
We'll see.
We love you.
All right, we love you. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
A nightmare figure infiltrated their lives. This was the biggest stalking case I'd ever seen.
Wait till I really get going.
Hundreds of victims.
Women, girls, family members.
Too many to comprehend.
I'm gonna come and get you.
They take over your identity.
Like a shapeshifter, the stalker seems to know everything.
What's up? And guess what? Not saying who I am, but you've an idea.
What are they going to do next?
They're going to hurt you. It's terrifying.
Unsafe. Watched. Like prey.
Will you promise to keep it our secret?
I was ready to fight the battle of finding out who this stalker was.
Defend myself, fight my corner.
But they knew that they were winning.
You know, I just had my very first experience at a Costco. Have you been to a Costco? I gotta tell you.
Maybe once, like with someone. You have to have a special card.
You have to have a special
right?
card, and if you don't, they don't let you in. And I gotta tell you, it is an experience. My eyes were wide open.
It's huge.
It's huge, and
You're
I was
looking
like,
up a lot.
It looks like the inside. It looks like the part of the IKEA where you get the couch in the 8 boxes, you know, and nothing like you get.
A warehouse.
Everything is in bulk. You get like, I mean, I got a thing of Honey Bunches of Oats, my favorite cereal. That's like it was like a 5-gallon box.
Great.
I smiled ear to ear the entire time. They have the liquor section the size of a country.
Do they?
Yes.
Free samples
books there.
anywhere?
Every single person was like, "Did you try the samples?" And apparently we got there before the samples came out. But they do have
the samples.
I know. Before the samples.
I want from door open to door closed free samples. Because I feel like in a place like that, it takes a lot out of you.
It really
That's
does.
your day.
Yeah.
Does it feel powerful to be in a place like that? I feel like it must.
Yes, it feels very powerful to be in a
Because,
place like you never want to leave.
Right, like why have like a stick of butter when you can have 40? Like why have one box of pasta when you can have like
20.
a whole like
I know.
what do they call it? Like a slate like
a flat?
Like a flat
to look in your eyes.
Why
when you
get
say
like
flat.
one bottle of
No,
marinara sauce?
when you
can
get
have 50?
30. Why wouldn't you do that?
It feels
powerful.
dangerously
Yeah.
powerful.
You have to have a big house somewhere to do it.
Like a pantry.
Oh, yes.
Place with a pantry.
Yes.